Liberty in our lifetimes in a free state of our own. That's the vision. That's the dream. And we are building it in New Hampshire. I'm Eric Gericke, your host and renegade statesman for the Porcupine Report. Welcome to your source for porcupine news and free-range conversation on matters of liberty. All right, let's hop into the show. Hey there, all you porcupines, you. This is your host, your renegade statesman, your executive director of the Free State Project in the Live Free or Die state of New Hampshire. Thank you so much for joining us today for episode 51. As always, we have a commitment to you to bring a brand spanking new episode every single Wednesday at 7 o'clock, though I will say there's a little asterisk on there on occasion. Last week, I was somewhat ill. I didn't really have a good voice, and we had to cancel last week's episode. But we did get to run a recent interview that I did on the Black Powder podcast. So if you watched that, I hope you enjoyed it. It was a fun conversation, and some folks who I hope will certainly come out and join us at one of our many upcoming events in New Hampshire, as I hope all libertarians around the country and the world know that they aren't a real libertarian until they've visited the libertarian homeland of New Hampshire. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that conversation last week, but we are back on track with episode 51. And we're going to be talking about a couple things today with our excellent guest. I'll be introducing again in a moment, but she's been on many times. You'll recognize her. She's a familiar face. But before we get there, a few things I want to update you on for some Free State Project news. First of all, I'm really excited to announce that the Free State Project is sponsoring later in February the Students for Liberty National Conference called LibertyCon. In fact, a number of us Free Staters, we're hopping in a van, we're driving down. I'm going to be speaking at the event, and we're going to be talking with all these young people at the Students for Liberty Conference about what's going on in New Hampshire and why New Hampshire should be a destination on their minds to come out and visit, or to maybe one day plant their roots and build their life there. So we're really looking forward to joining everyone at the Students for Liberty Conference, LibertyCon. If you're going to be there, be sure to stop by and visit us at our booth that we're going to have there. We're always looking to see friendly faces, and we'll be having some great Free State Project swag to give out. And the only cost will be your email address, because we're always looking to communicate more with people about what's going on here. And we deliver a fantastic newsletter every month, by the way. If you aren't currently signed up for our newsletter, you're missing out. You can sign up for that at fsp.org. But of course, we have some big events coming up right here in New Hampshire. On Sunday, something we're going to be talking a little bit about with our guest, we have our annual Porcupine Day. That's February 2nd. We're doing it at the Rugged Axe in Manchester, New Hampshire. It's going to be a great event. Tickets are flying fast, so be sure to get yours at fsp.org/Porcupine Day. And we have a special discount code from this show, which is a Pork Report. You can get 5% off, but our guest will be coming up shortly, has an even better discount code from one of our sponsors that we'll tell you a little bit about that. So if you hold off until later in this show, you might get an even better discount code with an even greater percentage off. So be sure to listen for that. And I just also want to say it was a great experience for myself personally. I went to, I got to testify in a New Hampshire public hearing for the very first time. I'm very familiar with doing public hearings in Maine. My first time at a New Hampshire public hearing, and I got to show up and testify on the Defend the Guard bill. There are so many great bills and important bills that are working its way through the New Hampshire legislature right now, from Defend the Guard to Right to Work to expanding school choice with universal access to education freedom accounts, and many, many more. I'm sure we're going to book more guests in the future who are in the legislature, just like we've had Representative Tom Mannion and Representative Michael Granger on in the past. We'll be sure to get some updates on the action that's happening in the New Hampshire State House. But for today, we got a great guest. I want to welcome back to the show the President Emeritus and also the Chairman of the Board for the Free State Project, an all-around interesting person, Carla Gericke. Carla, welcome back to the Porcupine Report.
Hey, Eric, thanks so much. You look like a superhero because the gold on your little badge is like, yes.
Yeah. The Porcupine Patron lapel pin, which you can only get, as you know, Carla, you can only get it by being a Porcupine patron for as little as $10 a month or $100 a year. You get a little bit of a discount. You help support our fantastic programs, helping to bring new movers to the Free State. And Carla, I seem to recall, I think you're a Porcupine patron. Are you?
Yeah, I was literally just going to tell you mine came in the mail and I haven't opened it yet.
All right.
So this came, and maybe I'll do like a little reveal. We could do like.
You want to do it now?
Sure.
All right. You can open it up.
I make the sound effects. I don't know how to do. Oh, that's a pretty good envelope. So I'll do some quality commenting as well. All right. This is super neat. Look at this. Okay. So, okay. So thank you for my card. Dated December 10th. So clearly I have not been opening my mail on the ready. Thank you for patronizing the Free State. Hope your Porcupine patron, here is your Porcupine patron lapel pin. Let's keep building. Love it for liberty. All right. So maybe I'll put mine on too.
All right. Well, while you're doing that, I will tell people, if you come out to Porcupine Day on Sunday and you wear your Porcupine patron lapel pin, we've promised people we're going to get them. You can get a free drink ticket. Well, try not to drink too much before you throw axes.
That with the one running the budget, but okay.
All right. Well, if I need to pay for those drinks myself, I'll do it.
No,
As a
I
thank
would
you
love
to our.
To see. Oh, look at that!
Yeah. So everyone's going to come out. People are going to come. They're going to wear their Porcupine pin.
This way.
And all the people without Porcupine pins are going to be so jealous. They're going to be like, how do I get one of those? And we'll say, got to become a Porcupine patron.
Right. And it's just, it's a really seamless, easy way to support the Free State. And, we're doing a lot of cool stuff. I love the programs you're putting in place. This Granite Gulch initiative is going to be really exciting. I can't wait to see more with that. We had a bumper fundraising going into 2025. I think that reflects really well on sort of people feeling like we're ready to build and let's go do some interesting things. And I just love little things like this. I'm going to start wearing mine maybe around,
right.
And do you see how it is so glinty?
I will admit it is not real gold, but it's gold colored and it's very snazzy. It accessorizes well. And everyone's going to wonder where you got it, and you'll tell them.
And it is a sweet little quick way to identify people. Of course, we are everywhere, but even up at the State House and stuff, right? Like it's just a kind of cute, fun little nod. I like it. What a great idea!
One thing I have learned from my time in Maine politics is that people love a nice lapel pin. And so.
Yeah, it's so odd to me. I'm just not driven by stuff. Like I find the whole, I've had these conversations with people over the years, and Dennis was like, why don't we have alumni and why don't we have, ribbons and I don't know, whatever.
We've talked about like merit badges for like completing the things in the Free State passport, right?
But, yeah, and there was a sweet spot there, right? Between it, so anyway, but I like this one very much. So I love that came in the mail, and I hope everyone is opening their mail and finding theirs and then being reminded to buy their Pork Day tickets, because I'm here to be like.
Yep. Pork Day this Sunday. It's coming up. Ironically on Groundhog Day. So we are just kind of wiping out the groundhogs. They never did anything good for us anyway. Porcupines are so much better.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be fun. We're trying something a little different, right? Last year we did it at the Mill Yard Museum, and it was sort of cocktail hour and a little bit of speechifying. So I thought, well, let's try something during the day. So 2 to 6 o'clock, still in Manchester. And I think we should, take it on the road at some stage. But the idea was, hey, there's this, it's just a really fun space. The Rugged Axe, very New Hampshire pride decorations, all the lanes have New Hampshire mountain names, and there's local brewery beers on tap and all of it. So it was just a really nice fit. So everyone should wear their fanciest flannel.
I'm wearing my flannel today to remind folks that when you come out, well, look, we're not going to turn you away if you're not wearing flannel, but it will be fun to have all of us in flannel throwing some axes.
Yeah. So, I think it'll be a fun afternoon, just kind of casual. So I hope people go to fsp.org/Porcupine Day, grab their tickets sooner rather than later, because as everyone who organizes events knows, at some stage you have to give a head count. And we are going to have really nice little charcuterie boxes that Bardo Farm has been making. So Bardo Farm is doing some of their not processed meats. That's the opposite of that. Like their hung meats, right? And then, some salami, some lardo, whatever. And then maybe a little baguette. Dominic from Porcupine Real Estate, who is one of our sponsors, he and his wife, she used to work at a cheese farm, like a local, delicious, award-winning cheese farm. Sorry, I haven't eaten in a few days, and I just realized I'm like talking about food like a crazy lady, but cheese. So there's going to be these great snack boxes. So there'll be some food. There's apparently now drinks, and and then there are axes, and it's fun. It's fun. And if you're not into it, there's enough room to hang at the bar or to just hang out. Like you don't actually have to, throw an axe if you don't want to. We're voluntary axe throwing people.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I know Porcupine Day was a lot of fun last year. I of course, everyone was so new to me last year when I came out. It was a great opportunity to meet and chat with a lot of people. And this is going to be fun. So this Sunday, 2 to 6, the Rugged Axe. Get your tickets now. And Carla, I know your day job is working for Porcupine Real Estate, helping people find their home in New Hampshire. And my understanding is Porcupine Real Estate is a sponsor of the event, and that viewers of this show, if they wanted to, could have Porcupine Real Estate pay for 30% of their ticket with a special discount code. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. So for folks listening, if you want 30% off, the general tickets are $50. So you could get 10 off there. Or the VIP tickets are $100, $30 off there. So that is the best deal you're actually going to get in terms of what the discounts are. Of course, the event is a fundraiser. So if you can afford it, pay the full ticket price. What do the VIPs get? That the plebes do not. They get first dibs on the lanes, right, for throwing itself. And then they get a very cool mug, I think. It's understated. It's a porcupine, but it's a little different. And they'll get a mug as well. So, get your tickets. The code is PRE30. PRE stands for Porcupine Real Estate. And as you mentioned, I would love to sell more people who are moving to the great state of New Hampshire a home. We're building a really cool, interesting future here, and I want to get more people to join us.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing everyone on Sunday. PRE30 at fsp.org/Porcupine Day. Get 30% off. Make Porcupine Real Estate pay for 30% of your ticket.
Punish me.
No, I really appreciate that, and I hope that will help bring in a few more folks who maybe weren't going to be able to come out otherwise. So
yeah, because the history over the years, maybe for folks who don't know, but we, the original Porcupine Day was when we triggered the move, and we had this whole press conference over at the Radisson. There were over 100 people there. There were real media, because it was during the circus of the primaries when New Hampshire actually still had that pull where it was regarded more as a swing state, I think. Or actually, what it is because there are only that handful of swing states, all the money goes there now. And so New Hampshire isn't in that. But back in the day, right, we had the news trucks and everything. So we did the press conference, and then we threw an after hours party at this nameless speakeasy on Manchester Street that actually had a fake phone box on the outside, and then you had to call in, and you had to know what the code word was, and then you could come in. And so we kind of wined and dined the journalists. Maybe that's why our media used to be more favorable. Maybe we should bring that model back. Being nice to people, imagine. Anyway, and then of course we triggered the move with the 20,000th signer to this assurance contract, where people said, hey, if one nutter will move, then let's all move, kind of thing. So here we are. It's been a long road. It's ninth Porcupine Day, and we're in our second generation. I don't even know everyone anymore. It's crazy.
Yeah, I remember Chris Lopez telling me about the very early days when there were 50 people who had moved, and you'd get you'd throw an event, and you'd have people would come all over for the one event with 50 people, and now you can't keep track of everyone. It's thousands and thousands of people all across the whole state.
Yeah, I think back in those days, it was also because we were so scattered and there were so few of us. I think the challenge is, as if you integrate your life in New Hampshire, you get busy with 100 things, right? It's your life. So maybe you're not protesting at the State House anymore, but you are picking up the trash in your local park every weekend, and there's this sort of shift. So it's so exciting to see all these new people coming and selling them houses and meeting just fascinating movers. We're a really interesting crowd as well. So yeah, it's great. And after Porcupine Day, then it's Liberty Forum, and then we're on to Pork Fest, and then it's almost next year again.
Well, we just started this year. Can we take it a little slow?
I know. They say time keeps going faster and faster. I'm very hungry. This is all that's happening right now. I'm willing the next 2 hours.
I know you're doing a 72-hour fast, and we're on hour 70. So right after this show, anyway.
Yeah, I did warn you before the time.
You did, Carla. I appreciate it. But I do want to talk about something we would have been talking about last week if I hadn't been under the weather, and we didn't have an episode out last week. But some huge news for the Free State movement, for lovers of liberty, lovers of cryptocurrency around the country and around the world, was something that at a certain point, maybe you look back a decade, seemed like a hopeless cause. But last week, all the work of so many people came to fruition when newly sworn in President Donald Trump gave a full and unconditional pardon to Ross Ulbricht, who was serving a double life sentence plus 40 years for the crime of building a website where people exchange goods online. So Ross is now free. He's walking free. Carla, I know that I know in my individual capacity along the ways, I've done individual things to try to help out with the Free Ross movement over the years, but you've really had a front row seat for much of the efforts in New Hampshire over the course of the last decade. I mean, I remember, I don't remember what year, like I remember first hearing about Ross and his case, hearing Lyn Ulbricht and meeting her at PorcFest one year. And looking back on some of the records, I mean, we found like 10 years ago, Lyn Ulbricht at PorcFest talking about her son's imprisonment. And this movement obviously gained a lot of steam over the course of the last decade since. When you look back at the Free Ross movement and the Free State Project's participation in supporting the Free Ross movement, what stands out to you across the last decade?
Honestly, the first thing that stands out to me is Lyn. Ross is incredibly lucky that that woman was his mother and that she just decided she would not give up. You know, she had a heart attack from a broken heart. It's a certain specific kind of heart attack that people have because of sadness. She was relentless, and kudos to her. I mean, honestly, sometimes to the point of annoyance, you know, and then Lyn and I are friends. She has spent time in my house for weeks. But really, honestly, just Ross, you know, he's very lucky that that woman just said, I won't give up. And I remember actually when the Supreme Court said they wouldn't hear the appeal, and we were in conversations, and she was like, I don't know what we need to do. And I was like, look, I know we're going to free him. Like, I just had no doubt in my mind. And I think that stemmed from my experiences with Nelson Mandela. Now, I know, love him or hate him, we could have a separate whole show on, you know, what other libertarians think they know about South Africa. But having actually grown up there and lived through apartheid, it was not a great system. It was Afrikaner socialism masquerading as nationalism. And so it was a good thing when Nelson Mandela was released from prison, because he was also sentenced to life imprisonment. And having seen that injustice be righted, although that took more than 30 years, I knew in my soul that we could free Ross, but we just have to like keep plugging away. And so it was the perseverance of it. And also, I think for me, what stands out is just, I think it was the first ballsy thing I did as a libertarian, where I was just like, no one had an opinion except a negative opinion. And I did my own research. I am a lawyer. I read everything I could get my hands on. I was into and am into crypto. And I was just, when I met Lyn, well, actually, it was first by email. I was just like, I am going to, the extent I can, platform this story. I guess at the time, it's really what it was, right? Like, we knew, and Free Staters were involved with Ross actually even before he was sentenced. I think there was a meeting where we got the criminal justice reform side of the libertarians kind of jumped on board later. But the initial people who were supporting him were fringe groups like the Free State Project. And Free Staters went to Ross's actual trial in New York. And, you know, because we'd been doing a lot of activism over the years, we had opinions about posters and like how to do it and how much noise to make. And regrettably, I think one of the mistakes that they made in Ross's trial is his lawyers were gun shy or media shy. And they didn't want to have the fight be in the public square. And we were like, no, that's where the fights need to be, right? Like, you're going up against the state. Really, all you have is other people's attention to focus on it so that enough people are yelling about the same thing that someone does something about it, right? And so I did not go. I forget, something came up, but a lot of my friends did go down to the trial in New York City. And from that moment on, we've just, many of us have just not given up. And so many things actually, stick out in my mind. If you'll indulge me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have this, this Edward Snowden mask was from actually that triggered the move, original Pork Day. And what we had done for that was we made the mask so that he would have this. We're trying to figure out a way when you have someone who's on remote to connect and to try and help him like really understand that like there was a lot of support, right? Because in the same way that happened to Ross,
this is when Edward Snowden spoke at Liberty Forum, or
all of that was the same weekend pretty much. So basically what happened was I knew we were going to trigger the move because we had finally figured out Facebook marketing, right? So we, in the last 3 months before we triggered the move, we started an online Facebook campaign. And it was the first time that libertarians could market to other libertarians. So we could actually just be like, hey, we're building this thing in New Hampshire. You should check us out. And how did we do that? We literally targeted Ron Paul and George Carlin because that was all you could do. You put in 2 search words and that was it, right? And so in those 3 months, I think we closed like on thousands of signers because we could really get to our people. And it was new technology, and it sounds like so antiquated now. but gee, goddamn, 9 years ago, this was, Anyway, so we knew we were going to trigger the move, and I had to actually drip it a little bit because we wanted to time the trigger to the primary to Liberty Forum, which was like, and those 3 things were going to happen sort of together. So the idea was if we can time it right, we can, the original idea was actually to have Ross or Ed be the 20,000th signer. And Ross was advised by his lawyers, if I remember correctly, that they didn't want him affiliated with us because of the appeals and the case and the sentencing and all of that, right? And then Edward, I forget, maybe I chickened out and I didn't actually ask him. I don't know. We could ask him maybe for next year for Liberty Forum, right? And so we were trying to leverage. So one of the powers, I think, of the Free State Project is we're actually small, right? But we hit above our weight. Look at what we've accomplished in New Hampshire. It's actually really impressive. And I wanted to leverage the media that was already here, those media trucks, all of that, right? Because we didn't have the money to do all the PR.
So this would have been 2016, right?
Yes, for the trigger.
Right. And so this was like, to kind of set the stage, like this was, it's funny to think, when I knew we were going to talk about these topics of Free Ross and Porcupine Day, I didn't actually realize that, all of this, there are these kind of underlying historical connections between all of these things. So this is 2016, February, to set the stage. You have, the early caucuses and primaries. Iowa and New Hampshire is second, and
Ron Paul comes second.
Well, that was 2012.
Oh, that's right. But didn't he come?
16 is when Rand was running, and Donald Trump
that's
took
right.
the nomination.
Yeah. Okay, you're right.
Yeah. So this
2012, I think, was when Ron Paul was the speaker at Liberty Forum. It might have been 11. I don't know. I should memorize all of this at some stage.
There have been so many years of the Free State Project now. I don't blame you for not having it all straight in your head.
No, and we need an archivist. Maybe people can like pay me to part-time try and capture some of this.
Yeah. Someone will need to write a book sometime on the history.
I'm working on it.
I didn't realize that so many Free Staters were involved with Ross even before he was sentenced. There was a whole kind of supporting contingent for him kind of during his trials. Did Ross himself have much connection with the Free State movement, or was it just more Free Staters being supportive of him hearing his story and what was happening?
I don't actually know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Sorry, it's literally the rugged axe.
Oh.
I thought I put it off. Sorry, I did. Sorry.
They're just calling to let us know how excited they are to have us
and probably
on Sunday, and that people can use discount code PRE30 for 30% off.
Right. Yeah. And we want to sell those tickets so we can make sure everyone signs their waivers so that we don't have a bottleneck on the day and we can just have a lot of fun and all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if I have my dates straight, I think Ross was arrested in 2011. Towards the end of the year, because at the start of that year was when Aaron Swartz committed suicide, and he was sort of the first. So my background's tech, right?
Yeah.
So tech and law, and law and tech, I guess. But so like, I've always had that Silicon Valley connection. I've always been interested in what cool, smart people are doing, and so like with Aaron's suicide, that was a big deal. That was someone
who don't know who's Aaron.
So Aaron was he was the co-founder of Reddit. He started RSS feeds before he was even 20. He was this like whiz kid genius, and he got it in his head that he was going to download all the academic papers at MIT and then make them free to the world. And the IP terrorists in the government were like, okay, we're going to charge you. And it was the first one of those like insane overchargings for technology crimes. Like, no one's getting hurt here. Like, what are we doing? So we're sending people like Roger Ver, or Ross to jail for lifetimes. And I'm like, what's happening to the people who murdered the kids at Waco? No one even got fired, let alone put in prison. You know what I mean? So now we have these tech crimes. And so with Aaron, they told him he was going to face 35 years. And he was depressed and allegedly committed suicide. And that was really sad. Like, that was just literally the state bullying someone to death. And then Ross happened, and and I was like, this will not stand. and so all of that was sort of tied together for me. I actually think Cory Doctorow, who writes sci-fi, sort of YA sci-fi, he came and spoke at Liberty Forum, which then must have been in 2012. He was a little snooty about us. Like, I think we were too pro-gun for him or something. But still a cool experience, whatever. So yes, I forget. Now we're all over the place. I do know I have one more thing to say about this. So.
All right, like let's get back to the Snowden mask.
Okay. Well, the Snowden mask actually ties in with the Ross story, because what happened was, so when we triggered the move in 2016, so I guess what I'm saying is, we've been involved probably since 2011, 12, whenever, like way back, right? Lyn started coming, and I know she came to a Liberty Forum because I remember talking to Ross on the phone from prison, because it was such a remarkable experience for me that I remember it. And I think I was in the corridor at the Radisson, but on the expo side, which doesn't fully make sense to me. So I'm like trying to remember if it was that, or maybe we were there and that was part of the primary stuff. But I remember something about that. I was going to ask Lyn next time I see her. So we were involved early on, but then when we had this massive opportunity with Snowden and Nick Gillespie from Reason, who did the interview, and I knew he was going to start chit-chatting and getting interested and going off on esoteric areas like I do. So I realized, I was like, shit, we're running out of time, and he hasn't asked the thing I need him to ask. So I grabbed in South Africa we call them cookies, you call them Sharpies, and I was like, and then I snuck up on Nick like from the side, and I'm kind of going, hey. So yeah, so this is like my favorite keepsake from I guess my
so
glory days.
For those who might be just listening to the show and not seeing the video of it, written on the back with a Sharpie is just Ross Ulbricht. So to get a clandestine message to Nick Gillespie that he needed to ask the question.
And he did ask it, and it was actually, his position was that yes, he thinks that they busted Ross, which all of us said at the time, with illegal search and seizure tactics. Because, there was talk back then, if I have all my tech and dates straight, about the triangulation that we just now accept as a way that everyone gets, like we've just given up so much on privacy and on, the things these people actually kind of fought for. I mean, even on the crypto side is, kind of, and of course, actually, to be fair, that was also why so many people were into the Ross story and why Free Staters were involved early, because it was a lot of our crypto folks who did the ATM. The first Bitcoin ATM in the world was developed by Free Staters in Manchester, New Hampshire, Lama Sioux. They were, are in exile is maybe a good way to say it, in the same way that Ross Vare is on the island of Mallorca and he's not allowed to leave until the Spanish government decides if they're going to extradite him to America to go to prison for 109 years for mail fraud, which, by the way, this is the mail fraud they want to. So these three charges is 90 years. It was, he sent in his tax return. They emailed him and said, we didn't receive it. He sent it in again. And then just to be safe, he sent it in a third time. So 3 times he complied. And they are now using that as instances of mail fraud.
So let's just for clarity, so folks know, we're now talking about Roger Ver, who has over the years acquired the nickname of Bitcoin Jesus, because he was a big evangelist for Bitcoin, and I don't know if it was him or someone else. I remember coming to Liberty Forum in 2014, I think, the year Tom Woods was speaking, and that's when I first learned about Bitcoin. And someone gave me 5 cents of Bitcoin and helped me set up a wallet. A few years later, I checked; it was worth $10, and I should have acted sooner. So I don't know if it was him or someone else, but he definitely had a presence with at Free State events. Though I know that some of the Bitcoin maximalist folks don't like him very much, because he has some disagreements, and I guess he disagrees with the direction Bitcoin took. I'm not smart enough to know who's right or wrong and all of that. But I will say to those Bitcoin maximalists who don't like Roger Ver, that still does not justify the federal government, throwing him in a cage for the rest of his life. In
fact, Elon, to his shame and disgrace, actually tweeted something nasty where he was like, yeah, Roger doesn't, because Roger gave up his citizenship, right? And he's now a citizen of St. Kitts, which is why he wanted to pay all these taxes, cross all these T's, dot all these I's, all of that. And so Elon said, membership has its privileges, like meaning like because you gave it up, you should just take it. And I was like, I mean, I won't say the F-bomb, but I was like, F that, because the US government, the IRS, doesn't get two bites at the same apple, right? Like they're going back. It's a retroactive tax. Anyway, so we are all over the place, as we always are when we
Well, it is a good reminder, and I do want to get back to Ross, but it is a good reminder that Ross is free, and I've looked for it. I know that now he's very justifiably like taking time with his family, and I encourage him to take as much time as he needs. And when he's ready, he will receive a hero's welcome here in New Hampshire.
For sure, yeah.
It is a reminder, though, that Ross is not the only political prisoner who's being unjustly held by the federal government. And there are many, too many to name, and I'm certain many I've never even heard about. But those who are, I think, kind of on the radar of many in the liberty movement are obviously Roger Ver, who we've spoken about, Ian Freeman, from right here in New Hampshire, who was a big advocate for cryptocurrency, and folks can go back and watch the interview that I did with his wife Bonnie on this program. And we did a press conference for him and for Ross and for Roger. And of course, then there's Edward Snowden himself, who is stranded in Russia, who can't come back. And of course, Julian Assange, who is technically free, but had to plead guilty to some bullshit charges. And his record should be, he deserves a pardon. I think he's done great service to the world and to the American public, letting us know what our government does in our name. So
and the WikiLeaks model, no one ever talks about that, because in the same way, honestly, that Silk Road, right? These are technological solutions to problems created by government that is too big. And these were smart people who were like, hey, why don't we just solve the problem, right? These aren't people who should be being put in prison for hundreds of years or for 10 years. Ross was in prison for 12 years from the time he was 26. That is like stealing your youth. It's stealing your most productive years, unless you're me and I'm going to be productive till I'm 200. But it's cruel and unusual punishment. And truly, if we have to have any of the globalist organizations and listen to any of them, and we shouldn't, we're out of the WHO, but it is that life sentences without the chance of parole is actually a form of torture, because there is no light at the end of the tunnel. What you are offering those people is just bleakness. And the legal international organizations believe it's torture. That is the position. Yeah. And I agree with that, and when you're in these supermaxes and these places that the government runs fully, that they can't even keep drugs out of or banana wine out of, they're throwing people in solitary. It's a terrible situation. I am hopeful, maybe we can get Donald Trump's ear over the next couple of years and look at actually releasing nonviolent drug offenders from prison and starting to come up with some better solutions. I have been surprised, I will say, that there's a lot of negative backlash against Ross's pardon. I'm starting to get it on X, and mostly more from, I would say, the Christian right Republicans. I've been doing some radio shows this week and stuff, and I can tell from the questions, people are like, what's going on here? You guys are backing a bad guy. And because I've been involved so long, it's easy for me to say, no, that's not what happened here.
Right. And to be charitable to these folks, I think many of them have only heard the government's narrative on who Ross Ulbricht is and what he did. I mean, I think we all encounter it if you post anything online, or you're reading the comments on something related to Ross, people are like,
never read the comments.
well, I read the comments. I don't know. but people say, oh, he it's like, well, I know that he put a hit out on someone. It's like, do you know that? Is that something really that you know, or is that something the government said and never proved, and never even brought those charges forward because they couldn't prove that? And that the and
perhaps even knew they couldn't prove it. And, sometimes it's tactical. They seed these stories.
Oh,
the
yeah.
51 agents who said it was a Russian operation. I mean, it is actually what we should all be learning everything about is propaganda tactics, because once you understand them, you could just be like, how like 10 years ago libertarians were like, oh, everyone learned argumentation names, and everyone, oh, that's de hominem, oh, that's a Scotsman, oh, that's strawman, right? And everyone was doing it. It was annoying, but okay, fine. It's like we should all be able to do that with every propaganda tactic. In fact, everyone should go to my website, because I had the AI design. And I was randomly doing research for show prep, and I was like, oh, I wonder what would happen if I just said, design me a board game called Propaganda. And it was very enlightening, because by making it the game, it like revealed a lot of like interesting things, I thought. Anyway, I stick all of those conversations on my website, carlagericke.com, so people can go look what the conversations with the AI are. And a lot of times people get mad. I'll post something and they'll say, but do you believe this? And I'm like, no, I'm just seeing what it thinks is like, the flavor, right? Because I'm so...
What's your AI of choice? Which AI are you talking to?
I talk between ChatGPT and Grok mostly.
Okay.
So I do go in between them. And then if it's like really for like show prep or something where I have to make sure, I might even run the one through the other just to see if, they're making up court cases, or, telling me this country Western song by John Denver about some farmer. And I'm like, that's not real. You just made up an entire country album, so you got to check your work, which of course also means you actually have to know things, right? That's what makes it so dangerous, because the AI does feel like, I read a whole article. There are a lot of people who are starting to treat them like they're gurus, right? Because you can kind of do that self-help and kind of work with it and whatever. And then it turns out like people are starting to worship their AI. So we're in uncharted and interesting territory, but not as uncharted and interesting as my tummy is with this notion that I'm going to be eating soon. So,
well, let's we can begin to wrap up. Carla, if Ross or Lyn were to hear this episode, which they might, very well could, what's a message that you would give to either or to both of them?
Honestly, first of all, I would just say, like, I love them and I'm so glad this worked out for them and that it happened and that there were enough of us who believed that we could do it, that truly our human action together. Actually, it's like a miracle. It's very rare to get people out of prison with a full pardon.
Yeah.
And I think it's remarkable. And I'm proud of myself for even the small part I played in it, which was just, I'm very dog-headed when I get something in my head, which is why I know the Free State Project's working, right? Because I was just like, there was a hit and miss time and I was just like, I'm not going to give up, right? So I would say that. Then, of course, I would say, Ross, you owe me. You got to come to Liberty Forum and Porkfest would be my desire. But, we could figure out what works with his schedule. And, and I just want to say to Lyn, I think you're an amazing mother. I think, wow, just, well done.
Lyn's really been a beacon of light. I think the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
So now you made me cry for no good reason.
well, it's hard to say no to Lyn. she just asks, hey, will you sign this letter? Will you introduce me to this congressman? Will you, and it's like, you can't say no. You can't say no.
Oh my God. I honestly, maybe if I run my one term as president of a free and independent New Hampshire, I might make her my campaign manager.
She is relentless when it's at least when it's for her son. So
yeah. So and I'm proud of the Free Staters' history in this. I think if we could probably put together an anthology, maybe this would be a fun project to do. To ask people, write that essay about this one thing that so many of us have a little piece of the story. I have a lot of pieces, but they're also kind of Carla jumbled. So, like the folks who went down to the courthouse, maybe someone could do a thing on that, right? And we could get these stories together. I was looking through my memories with, so consistently sending Christmas cards, over the years and birthdays, and just kind of trying to create little reminders to people. Hey, remember, there is this person out there that this has happened to. And then it's important to remember that there are a lot of, like you said, there are a lot of other people, this is so sad. I'll make myself cry again. But, I'm a lawyer by training, and I did actually do criminal justice work in South Africa. That was sort of where I cut my teeth. I would go out to the townships and kind of help people who are just being sandbagged because they're uneducated and life's hard under apartheid,
Yeah.
And South Africa, how did I get here? Oh, good Lord. Oh, make myself cry. No, it's gone. Sorry. I'm so tired. I'm so hungry.
We'll have to pick up that story next time.
Oh my God. I'm going to re-listen to this, at least the end, and then be like, what was that? And then I'm going to be like, oh, it's such an obvious thing I should remember. If we keep talking, maybe it'll come back to me. But what would make me cry? No, I don't remember. Now my nose is running. This is a disaster. We should definitely get off the air right now. But I would like to put out a little plug for myself, if I may.
Go ahead.
I'm doing, if you enjoyed this episode of the Pork Report, there's more where this came from. No, I'm actually doing, as a personal challenge to myself, a 365 days of X Lives. Where I'm just, whenever I have a moment and I'm in between stuff, or sometimes I have something I want to say, sometimes I think I'm going to get a Nerf gun and just shoot it here and do whatever the wall hits, right? Because there's a lot of interesting history back here. And but people should follow along, because there is a lot of Free State history in there. And of course, there's also just our lives, right? Like, we live here now. Sometimes you're like, oh, I wish I'd gone and testified on that bill. But you're like, I'm actually rather going to go snowshoeing with my dog, because that's life. And that is the best part, I think, of being here, is that we have this community that can do things like get, people out of prison. And Ian Freeman, let's give it a little talk there. His appeal is coming up. I believe it's the 4th or the 5th of February, and that'll be in Concord if it's at the same place. So folks should come out for that, and sign the petition. So, we started with freeross.org way back. Now we got a freeiannow.org. We got a freerogernow.org. So let's make sure we keep the pressure on for the other people too, and maybe we can make 3 miracles happen.
Well, I certainly think that what happened with Ross is a model now that demonstrated, so many pieces along the way that contributed to making it happen. A relentless family member, a grassroots movement. The
Trump factor, we have to say, he kept his word, which I knew when he made that promise. I was like, he's the kind of guy who will not go back on that.
It never seemed to me like it was. I know that there were a lot of naysayers when
Yeah, but they're all such negative Nellies. Can those people just get a grip on life and just become a little more positive? Like, everything can't be like the worst doom and gloom.
Yeah. There were, when Angela McArdle kind of got that promise from him to free Ross Ulbricht, and a lot of naysayers, but you know what? It just always seemed to me that if he made a promise like that, that was a pretty concrete promise. And you know, what's the cost in political capital to him really to do it, right? This isn't like abolishing the Department of Education. Like, I hear a promise like that. It's like, that sounds nice. I doubt you're going to really do that. But freeing Ross Ulbricht that promise had been made. That promise had been restated several times on the campaign trail.
I mean, there was, I don't know if, let's not say it rises to the legal level of a quid pro quo, but, you know, I think Trump did get a good 3% bump from libertarians, and I can prove that on the numbers. So there was also an issue where it was like, look, we can help put you over the finish line. We have enough clout. We're not going to take over the federal government, but we're just big enough to be a spoiler. Hello.
Libertarians were the kingmaker in this, and certainly I think Trump's decision to come to speak to libertarians, to hear some of the specific demands that we had. And obviously, you know, there's a lot more we'd like to see happen to the federal government that I don't think is going to happen under Trump presidency, but you take what you can get. And we know in the Free State movement that real change for a libertarian society is going to happen from the bottom up in the states. It's never going to happen from someone in the White House anyway. But to get a pardon for one of our heroes, our champions, not only does Ross have his life back, but I look forward to seeing what he does with it. And so,
and honestly, if he just wants to go surf in Costa Rica for the rest of his life, he gets to do that too, right? Like, I don't think there should be pressure to have to be a hero again. You know, it's a lot.
Yep.
Maybe he's done his dues, but he could certainly just come and live in New Hampshire, and we would just let him live his life.
Ross, we will throw a welcome wagon for you.
There we go. I would carry a credenza.
All right. We're going to end it on that note. Carla, thank you so much for coming on the show this week. I'm glad to talk with you. And that's such a nice lapel pin that you're wearing.
Isn't it pretty?
Thank you, Carla.
Bye, guys.
All right, everyone. That's the show. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 51. Reminder, this Sunday is Porcupine Day. I know we've said it a million times, but really, I want to see you there. So come out, join us. You could use the Pork Report discount code for 5% off, or you could make PRE, the Porcupine Real Estate, pay for 30% of your ticket. PRE 30, get 30% off your ticket price at fsp.org/Porcupine Day. And and then there's great events coming up. We'll have more to update you on in the future with Liberty Forum and Pork Fest. We made some great announcements. Actually, I'll tell you, Liberty Forum, we're going to be having a Soho Forum debate. This is going to be in April between myself and Andrew Heaton, hosted by the great Gene Epstein. I'll tell you more about that in later episodes. See you at Porcupine Day. Thank you for tuning in. And furthermore, my opinion is the Federal Reserve should be destroyed.